Hello, I'm Nicole. I'm the National Sales Manager at SalesFix, and I'm here with Phil.
Hello, Nicole. I'm Phil. I'm a Salesforce consultant working at SalesFix.
Awesome. And we're going to be talking about change today. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, the things that make projects fail, really. Um,
Yes.
are we talking people change or technology change?
Well, I think both are pretty credible, but I'm going to say let's focus on the people side. I think that's often a perhaps a side that can be overlooked, and it's a good opportunity for us to focus a little bit more on it.
I always say projects fail because of people, not the technology. We work with Salesforce. You can build anything you like on Salesforce. It's the people that's the challenge. So how do we help people change?
So first of all, let's maybe ask the question then. So, what is it about people that makes a project fail, or not so much fail, but causes some perhaps some issues with a project delivery?
Yeah. Well, I think people get into habit, don't they? They like routine, they like knowing how to do something. And if you're trying to change that, that can be a little bit threatening and a little bit anxiety provoking because you're going to have to learn something new. And we're all really busy people. So trying to learn something new is taking time out of your everyday to do that. And then you've got to do your rest of your job as well. So I think that's pretty much for me, I think that's what it.
Yeah, that's right. It's an additional pressure for them, isn't it? And on top of that, in some instances as well, it can actually change, may lead to them feeling like their job isn't as valued anymore, or even may not even have a job at the end of the change. So there might be times where they become very resistant and it actually, starts to block the progress or to start costing money at the end of the day through
Yeah.
time or through additional resources.
That's true, and it's funny, isn't it? Because I remember the very first project that I was involved in so I was a customer in London. I was working for a not-for-profit, and we rolled out Salesforce, and we had three people in our training team who just did admin, all paper-based admin, booking
Fun.
people onto courses, Excel spreadsheets, the usual. And they were quite scared of the change that was coming because you're right, they thought they were going to lose their jobs. Whereas actually at the end of the process, we had one person doing half their time as admin, the other two skilled up and became trainers and marketing people and much more valuable and interesting roles. So the
Yeah.
jobs they had were better for it.
And it's about their perception, isn't it? It's their perception of what that change is going to mean to them. And if they've not been educated or no one's actually spoken to them about what the growth opportunities are for them, they're going to fear it, and that's not what you want. So it's certainly an important part within a project delivery and something we're going to be focusing on next.
Cool. So we use a particular model to at least think about change when we're delivering projects. What's that model, Phil?
It's called the AdCar model, and I actually hadn't heard of it before starting at Salesforce. So that's it's what is it, Nicole?
Look, it's a way of breaking down change because when you talk about change, most people think about training, right? And that's an aspect of change, but actually it's much broader than that, and it starts from the very moment you're thinking about making a change. Even while there's just this little nugget of an idea in your head, you need to be thinking about, okay, but how's this going to impact on people, and how do I help people work through that change? So the AdCar model, it's an acronym. I think it's an acronym. I always get confused between acronyms and the other one, but anyway, it's an acronym. But so the A is for awareness, the D is for desire, the K is for knowledge, the A is for ability, and the R is for reinforcement. And I think if we talk through each of those, I think we've both got examples of where things have gone well or gone wrong across each of those sort of areas. Yeah, we'll come up with some good ideas. So awareness.
Yes, awareness, communicating the reason for change and why
Yeah.
the change is necessary. So
Mm.
this is probably focusing more around once you've got the idea, it's about actually then broadening the people that have exposed to that idea, not so much keeping it within a small sort of, I suppose, management teams, but actually starting to bring on board and communicate what the plans are and where that change is going to lead everyone and where it's going to be taking them to.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, there's a project that we've just delivered down here in Melbourne where, we had been working with the leadership team for this organization for 6 months. as we planned and navigated the negotiations and procurement of various things. And we got into the discovery phase of the engagement and realized that internally communication hadn't happened too well, and that a lot of people in that discovery process didn't really understand or weren't really aware even that the change we were planning was coming. And there was a lot of resistance, as you'd expect, right?
Yeah, and I guess from our perspective as consultants coming to help those customers, that immediately starts then causing issues, doesn't it? It starts presenting challenges that perhaps, I mean, we can certainly help and support, but if those challenges aren't there, then the progress is going to certainly be a lot more efficient, and overall the delivery will be a lot faster.
That's right, because you've got people on board with this idea that there's this cool new thing. It's exciting. It's it's happening for a reason, not just because we want to get into another technology project. I mean, no one ever says that, right?
Yeah. Oh, maybe something.
Maybe, well, you and I might say that.
Maybe, yeah. So, what in that scenario then, Nicole? What did you do, or what was the resistance there, and how was it sort of overcome?
Well, it was really about fear, right? There were two people in particular who had their way of doing something, and they had it down slick, right? They didn't see a need for change. They were like, but hang on a minute, we do this thing really well. We've got our spreadsheets, we've got our Outlook, we work very well together. We don't have any need for change. And so it was an educational piece. It was about acknowledging that we could have communicated better, we being the broader project team, us and the client. It was acknowledging that we could have done that better, but also saying, okay, well, now that we're in this place, what can we do to improve it? What can we do to explain to you what the change is and why it's necessary?
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, I've actually got a customer who I've recently been working with as well. So they were actually very good at that. They've played that role really well. And as a result, the project has we've progressed really smoothly. There's a lot of excitement within the business. And in all, everyone's engaged. Everyone's excited about what that's going to bring to them and what it's going to be like for them in this future state environment. And that's been fantastic. It's such a help, and it's really really positive to actually have that awareness and that excitement for a project. It's almost like we can't deliver it quick enough. So yeah, very different scenarios. So do we then focus perhaps on the next stage then? So the awareness obviously is about the communication. What's the desire stage about?
Well, you just really talked about it, right? Because that awareness has led to desire, right? So they are, in your case, they're keen, they're eager, they want this change because they can see how it's going to improve what they do and how they do it. Whereas in my case, the desire was completely not there. And that's where we had to kind of play catch up. We had to say, okay, you're actually resisting the change at the moment. How do we flip that around and turn that into a desire? And that can often be challenging because you've started off from a bad position in the first place.
Yeah.
And it does depend a little bit on the culture of the organization as to how you approach that.
And the individuals too, doesn't it? Yes. I suppose it comes down to the individuals that are experiencing or on that side of the change, and whether they're adverse to it or whether they're all for it. So again, a lot of moving variables, but yeah. And
none of us really likes a surprise, right? Like we all pretend we do. There's a surprise birthday party, yay! But actually,
getting a bit old, the old ticket.
Yeah, getting too old for that. So it's about saying, okay, when, for example, in the example that we've just the project we've just delivered, we kind of, as a project team, with the leadership, we said, okay, look, there's this problem. How do we address it? And we agreed, knowing them, knowing us, knowing what we could do, the next best steps to take to generate that desire. And we actually agreed that in this case, the best situation would be to very quickly show them something tangible that they could understand, because it was all very hypothetical and airy-fairy, not very easy to comprehend. So we very quickly said, let's build something and show them something and show them how it's going to help them do their job better. And that did help.
Yeah, and again, very much the approach we've taken. So except the difference being we already had the desire. There was already the excitement to get rid of some old systems that were very time consuming. And we delivered it in a way that actually, you know, with each sprint, we actually said, right, here's what we've built at the moment. And they were getting those snippets of the picture of what it's going to be like, and, you know, what the great benefits are going to be. And again, you know, desire leads then to knowledge and starting to learn, which is the next stage, coincidentally, in our AdCAR approach. You know, start learning by sharing, you know, sharing what's been built, sharing how, you know, people are actually going to benefit from some of these changes, and giving them the information that perhaps has been missing from the earlier stages.
Yeah, and that knowledge isn't necessarily the technical knowledge of how to do something, but the knowledge of what's coming and the benefit it's going to bring, right? And if you, you know, as consultants, we get excited about building stuff, right? We get geeked out about being able to build this clever widget that does X, Y, and Z. But if the end user doesn't understand the benefit that that's going to bring them, and if we aren't focused on that benefit, we could just be building a rocket ship for all they care, right?
Yeah, and I think the other thing as well is, with that knowledge also then brings with it more knowledge. You know, oh, that looks great. It would be great if it could do this, or it'd be great if it could do that. And obviously you've got to manage that, but it's great for then starting to draw out those additional requirements that perhaps hadn't been considered, but would be a really nice to have as an end delivery within the project.
That's right. And you're enforcing that knowledge, or not enforcing it, enhancing that knowledge, because people, and then that tips back into desire, right? Because they're getting excited about what's coming, and their desire then increases. So none of these, with the AdCar model, none of these things are very discrete, you know, stages.
Yeah,
they're just they often overlap and interact with each other. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so after knowledge, we've then got ability. So ability, what's ability about?
Well, that's often the bit that people focus on, right? That can be the training bit, right? And so when you're talking to a customer, and as a salesperson, this is the bit where I sometimes get a bit frustrated, because, as I said, people just go straight for training. Yeah, how much training's included? And I'm like, well, yeah, I can tell you that, but have you thought about the other bits as well, right? And whether we are involved in that or not, you've got to remind people that they're important. So yeah, training sits in here, and how you deliver that training can be very individual and very focused on how the organization learns, and what solutions they've already got in place for learning.
And I guess when we're talking about training as well, and again, blending it back and looking at that desire and that knowledge that's already there, it can really, those earlier stages can really make or break how that training is delivered. So you mentioned about how the training is received. Something we talk about a lot with customers is, do you want an on-site all-day training session, a 4-hour training session, a train the trainer? Or what's becoming more popular is actually smaller snippets of video knowledge, and actually recording those as delivering the training, like I suppose like we are now, and walking through the example, as well as then a level of on-site as well, which is also very important to embed the basics.
That's
but
right.
It's about engaging the end users with the right kind of media that they're going to then absorb the best.
And I think also the idea, that when you're doing training, you're enabling the person to not only do the thing that you're training them on, but also enabling them to feel confident that they can figure it out for themselves next time, right? So
empowering.
Yeah, empowering them, because you're using open and guided questions, right? So very often when you're doing training, people will say, okay, click this button here and do this. Well, that doesn't teach anyone anything other than to follow in an instruction, right? Whereas if you were to say, what button do you think you might press to create a new contact? You're giving them, they're having to think about it. And so it sticks in your head. And I think even that subtle difference in how you deliver training face-to-face or virtually at the moment can make quite a difference. But even things like, the in-app guidance or my Trailhead stuff that Salesforce has released recently, that, they're all really good tools as well to kind of really embed that ongoing learning throughout a person's job.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have much more to add to that one, to be honest, for the ability stage. So the next stage, reinforcement. So how do we help those people that we've now trained and they've got the desire? How do we help them to keep their eye on the ball and make sure that they don't forget that?
Well, again, very often our engagement finishes, we go live, we do the training, they've got excited, they've got their little tip sheet and they know what they're doing, and that's it. And and then 6 months later, they're like, well, how come the users aren't using the solution? And how come, they're not happy? And well, it's because we've not reinforced it.
Yes.
It doesn't end at go live. It's just got to be. And one of the things that we do as an organization is bring Salesforce into our everyday work, right? The meetings that we have are run using dashboards in Salesforce. If it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen. That's what everyone says, right? Yeah. And that's important. So having that buy-in from the leadership of, making sure that people are recording stuff in Salesforce, they're talking about Salesforce as they're doing their jobs, they're bringing it into the meeting space, all that sort of stuff.
Trying to live and breathe it. And there's going to be varying degrees of success there, isn't there? For instance, you're delivering a service solution where the tool is Salesforce. They have to, they're receiving the requests via Salesforce, versus potentially the sales side of things where they don't have to use it. They can sell without it. But the idea is that it's actually going to bring a lot of benefit to them if they start using it and leveraging it to help them with their job. And I've got another example, actually. I was in a role in the UK and we implemented, it wasn't Salesforce, but it was a CRM solution. And it, coming from an old, I think they used spreadsheets before that. And, but literally the top-down approach, massive, because I would get sales guys running up to me about half an hour before their meeting with the CEO. And he had a very firm, if it's not in the system, what are you doing? You haven't done anything. What are you doing? What am I paying you for? So, and they would literally run up to me panicking. Oh my God, I've got this meeting. I need to help me quickly update everything, or, and so it's true. That top-down approach, it works. And it's very important. Otherwise, people won't follow the process. They won't keep inputting and using the system and benefiting from it if they don't have to, or if it's not a critical part of their role.
That's right. And we really have no excuse, do we? I mean, when you can log activities and tasks and meetings from your phone, we really have no excuse. And I say that being somebody who very rarely logs activities in Salesforce.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
Bad. But I use Salesforce for everything else, right? So, give me a bit of credit. It's that reinforcement. And I think a lot of that stems from being able to sort of look back and go, okay, well, this month we did this. Whatever your KPIs are, whatever you're trying to achieve, whether you're, delivering services in the not-for-profit space or trying to drive revenue in selling widgets to whoever, you can look back and go, we achieved this, and here are the things that we think impacted on that. And we know that because it's in Salesforce.
That's right.
It's all that analysis. We can do more of this because it has a good outcome, and do less of that because it's not helping us achieve what we need to achieve.
Yeah. And we're focusing in the conversation very much on Salesforce because that's what we live and breathe. But it's important to remember that this model for change management is actually, you could apply it to anything, couldn't you, really? It's not specific to Salesforce by any means. It's a tool or a model that probably should be used in all types of change, whether it's system change or other. So it's certainly a useful one to follow.
It's not bad if you're a parent either, I have to say.
Oh, really? That's a good idea. I should really think about that.
You plant a seed.
See where you're going with that. I know distraction works sometimes, not always, but yeah.
Awesome.
So to wrap this up then, so what are our key messages from the AdCAR model that will help our listeners to manage change, implement change, deal with change, and promote that excitement?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm always disappointed when change is the first thing that people cut from their budget. So I think never cut change. I'd cut technology scope way before change. That's my first takeaway.
Yeah, it has a huge impact, doesn't it? And for me, I think the biggest thing for me is the engagement, engaging your team, engaging them, bringing them on the journey with you. You know, you're going to implement this new system, or you're going to make this change in the business. Don't just keep it to yourselves, but communicate and get feedback, and bring, whether it's just key users from each area of the business, but bring them on board and try and get their feedback on how they think it might actually work, and whether there's some other missed opportunities that could be included as part of that change.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. Two brilliant things. Do change and do it early and often.
That's it. And then it will just help support everything else. It'll all be easy after that.
Yeah, totally. Lovely.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you to our listeners. And if there's any questions, if there's a comment section, which I assume there would be, then leave a comment.
Brilliant.
Cheers.